If only I could get one man to marry me, or at least sleep with me, to this virgin me, to avoid the king's sacrifice tomorrow. Once upon a time, in the small African village of Ikot, there lived a very poor farmer named Udo. Udo was married to a beautiful woman, Ekaite. Udo and Ekaite were so poor that they were treated like outcasts by their own people. The only thing Udo and Ekaite had was a small piece of land that was handed down to them by their ancestors. Udo and Ekaite barely survived on the little crop produce they harvested from their farm. Udo and Ekaite had a lovely daughter named Nkoyo. Nkoyo was born with unique blue eyes and dreadlocks, which villagers called Dada. The couple were happy to welcome their rare gifts from God, only to realize on her 4th birthday that she was blind. Why would God choose to keep punishing us? Ekaite cried. On Nkoyo's 10th birthday, her parents passed away from a mysterious illness, leaving her behind in this lonely world. Nkoyo's only companion was her white dog, Mbok. Shortly after her parents' death, the villagers banished Nkoyo from the village, claiming that she was a witch with bad luck and she was the cause of her parents' death. Nkoyo went to her parents' small farmland and built herself a thatched hut where she lived alone with her wise dog Mbok. Nkoyo was a very hardworking young girl, tilling her parents' farm and growing her crops to sustain herself and her dog. Nkoyo worked so hard that her palms were strong and cracked, just like a very strong ancient rock. One fateful day, evil befell the village of Ikot. The king's son, Itoro, committed a very heinous abomination that sent the entire village into pitch darkness. For 3 consecutive days, the day did not break in the village of Ikot. The king summoned the chief priests to the palace to find a solution to the problem. King Aban, your son's offense carries heavy consequences beyond animal sacrifice. The king has 2 options to choose from. It's either your son dies or you sacrifice 7 virgins to appease the gods. The chief priest said. When can the virgin sacrifice be carried out? King Aban asked without hesitation or thinking twice. As soon as virgins are captured, the chief priest replied. The rumor of the king's decision spread throughout the entire Ikot village, and young maiden virgins were thrown into serious panic. Have you heard the latest news of the king's verdict? The king's guards are currently in search of 7 virgins to sacrifice before the next market day. I can't afford to be a victim. We have to find a way to escape this evil omen. Young virgin girls began to pack their belongings, one after the other. Some left the village to their neighboring towns. When the deadline drew closer and the search for young virgins intensified, girls escaped the village in mass. Others, who had no relatives, begged men to marry them for free. There was a mass wedding all over the village. 3 ladies would beg a man to marry them just to escape death and the wrath of the king Nkoyo, the blind orphan, heard the news and was totally broken. Is this how my life would end? I have been through so much pain in this cruel world. How can my situation get even worse? Tomorrow, I will go into the village and plead with any man I come across to marry me, or at least sleep with me, to help me avert this situation. Early the next morning, Nkoyo set out to the village to try her luck. She met a group of men and laid her requests. Greetings, good men of Ikot. I am a poor blind orphan with no relatives to run to. If only I could get one man to marry me, or at least sleep with me, to this virgin me, to avoid the king's sacrifice tomorrow. The men busted out in very loud laughter. Then they count meat for pots, but more they raise hand. We are not done marrying up the beautiful young girls on our neck, offering us riches. It is you, a blind outcast orphan with nothing to offer, that we would consider. Nkoyo cried all through her way back home that day. Mbok, her companion dog, was all she had in this world. Since I live in the bush, maybe they will not be able to find me, she prayed. Surprisingly, early the next morning, 2 palace guards stormed her hut and captured Nkoyo. Please let me go, sir. I am of no use to the gods. I am poor and blind. The palace guards ignored Nkoyo's pleas and took her to an open field at the outskirts of the village alongside other unfortunate virgins. All the virgins were tied and thrown into a grave to be buried alive. As the sand thrown on Nkoyo became heavier and heavier, Nkoyo laid a dark curse on the entire village with her last breath. It will never be well with the people of Ikot. You shall live in fear, darkness, loneliness, and disability. You shall experience all that I have been through. Nkoyo took her last breath and died. Nkoyo's dog, Mbok, never left her graveside. He stayed by her graveside day and night, barking all through the night, hoping that Nkoyo would return. On the night of the 4th day, Nkoyo's ghost arose. It was no longer the poor blind Nkoyo. It was now Nkoyo with the fierce eyes, seeking vengeance on all her enemies. That fateful night, with Mbok leading the way, Nkoyo trailed down the house of the hunter that showed the palace guards her hut in the bush. Mbok backed in front of his house for hours, and as the hunter came out to see why a strange dog was barking at his hut, he received a hot slap from Nkoyo's rocky, calcified hands. The hunter became paralyzed automatically. This pattern continued for days, and a lot of the villagers were rendered disabled. The news of the horrifying encounters spread throughout Ikot, and the villagers lived in panic. Some village elders summoned courage and reported to the king, seeking a solution, but King Akban dismissed them, saying that they were spreading false rumors. One evening, as the queen prepared dinner with her mates, a dog's continuous bark was heard outside the palace. The queen was thrown into pandemonium, but before she could realize what was happening, she got a heavy slap on her cheek. It felt like she was hit by a very heavy rock. The queen tried to shout, but she couldn't. She realized that she was dumb. She broke down in tears to the king. However, she could not speak. At this point, King Akban believed the rumor and sent a decree that all the dogs in the village be slaughtered within the next 24 hours. Great people of Ikot, to save us from the recent nightmare that had befallen our land, the king has graciously passed a decree for all dog owners to slaughter their dogs in the next 24 hours. The town crier screamed. Dog owners sold their dogs to foreigners in a hurry to avoid killing them. Yet, Mbok, the dog of Nkoyo, was nowhere to be found. One still night, as the entire village was silently asleep, the prince, Itoro, was sleeping in his chambers. Suddenly, the dreaded dog bark was heard outside his window. In the twinkle of an eye, Nkoyo's heavy slap followed. Ah! Who slapped me now? Guards! Where are you when someone slapped me? And why are the lights off? Prince Itoro queried. By the following morning, the prince realized he was blind. The king was left with a blind son and a dumb wife. Sorrow, grief, and darkness covered the entire village, from the least citizen to the king's palace. The people of Ikot suffered and suffered for years, and finally they repented of their evil ways and vowed never to discriminate against the poor and disabled in the village.